In this lesson, we're going to fine-tune the details we want for our dynamic scene. Okay, so on the bridge, we had basically this side wasn't demolishing or destroying itself as much as this side was. And I knew that I wanted this to be the one that was kind of still partially together. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do about this. So I'm going to go to my selection sets, and I'm going to go to my bridge main static. And let's go ahead and go along the back side here. And I'm holding down Control to select a couple more of these pieces. And I'm going to select quite a bit more on this one. Let's make sure that we get just the pieces themselves. Okay. And I'm going to set all of these to static. So I can just click static on my rigid body. And we'll go from there. Okay. Let's go ahead and go on the underside here. And let's choose a couple of these. And let's set these to static as well. Okay. And we can do the top. I'm going to just select kind of a row of these along the top. And set those to static as well. Okay. Now let's go ahead and start our simulation just to kind of see what we get on this. Okay. Some of those pieces are busting out. Pretty happy with how that's destroying itself on just this one right here. We've got a lot of our static pieces that are staying there. And I've got a couple along the back side that aren't really moving at all. Okay, and I do want those to move a little bit. I want those to kind of bust out there. So I'm going to have to release some of those. Alright, so let's go ahead and stop that simulation. Now before I do anything, before I deselect this, let's create that selection set. So let's do bridge underscore main underscore 01 underscore static. Okay, and that will override that selection set. Okay, let's reset the simulation. Okay, and it's supposed to override that selection set, and it doesn't look like it actually did that. All right, well, let's go ahead. Let's delete that one. And let's reselect some of these pieces here. So I've deleted that, reselected some of these pieces, and I'm actually going to deselect these here. Okay. And let's get these ones along the top that we wanted. So I'm just going to hold down Control, select these ones along the top. Here we go. And let's make that a new selection set. Let's call that bridge underscore main underscore 01 underscore static. There we go. So that's that new selection set. And with these, let's set these to static. And before I do anything, let's go ahead and do edit select by color, because I know I didn't get the exact same as I did before. So let's just select all of the red ones. Let's set those to dynamic. And then let's go to our creation or our selection set, go to that static, and then set those to actual static again. Okay, this is kind of one of those workarounds in case you've made a mistake or you want to make some changes. So I'm just showing you one workflow here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our simulation. See what that looks like. If we're happy with that, so this bridge begins to crumble, and that kinetic energy, you just see that flow through there and then it just explodes. Okay? And that's what you would have if you have a lot of pieces that are just going to be strong and hold together. Okay? You're going to get some of the weaker ones that just explode out. Okay? And I'm okay with how that looks. In fact, I really prefer it. So there's our static pieces held together. We've got some of these that are kind of falling out, and in our shot we may have some of these actually wiggle themselves out, and I like to see some of these pieces kind of like late bloomers, if you want to think of it that way. They just kind of fall down much later, just as time progresses, just showing you that this is still very, very unstable. Okay, so I'm happy with how this looks right here. Okay, I really like how this has fallen apart and it's still crumbling, so we know that that was a really hard impact on this. Okay, so I'm really happy with that. Now let's work on the rails themselves. Okay, let's go ahead and reset our simulation after we've stopped that, and let's take a look at our rails. So let's go ahead and do edit, select by, color, select all of these, and all of these are set to dynamic. So all I have to do is basically just deselect the ones that I want to keep dynamic and then set the ones that are left behind as static. So I know that I want most of these to be static. Okay, and a lot of these on this one are going to be static as well. Most of these are going to be set to dynamic and static. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to hold down Alt, deselect a lot of these here in the middle, and I'm just going to kind of be sporadic with how this is going to destroy itself. Okay, I'll just hold down Alt and click some of these, kind of mix it up a little bit. And I want more of these on the back side to be static than the front. So let's hold down Alt. Let's get rid of a good chunk of these along the front. Okay, leave those as dynamic. All right. Now some of these, if you have a chunk that is just out on its own, you want to make sure that it's not like hovering like this, because whenever we play this scene, we're going to have a chunk that's just going to be floating in midair. So we want to kind of watch out for some of those. So if you want like a certain chunk to be there, you need to make sure that you actually select the pieces that are connecting to it down at the base of the rails. Okay, so that way it looks like it's actually a chunk that's being held on by the bridge. Okay. Alright, so I have those deselected. Let's go ahead and deselect most of these right here on this side of the bridge. And let's give it a little bit of randomness. Let's just alt-click some of these pieces. And I'm going to control and click a couple of these pieces along the middle. And you know what, actually let's hold down Alt, because this bridge does demolish all the way through. So we don't want the rail to just kind of hang there. Alright, and let's just deselect a few of these along these ends here, just to kind of show how much destruction and how much energy was produced throughout this bridge of the impact. Do the same thing on this side. And again, you don't have to be exact or anything like that. Just alt-click a few of these just to kind of break it up a little bit. Alright, so I have these selected. Okay, all the ones that are in green are going to be dynamic, and those are going to fly out of the rails, or could have the possibility. So all of these that we have selected, let's change those to static. So just click static, and we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and start our simulation just to see what we have, and then make any changes from there. So our bridge begins to crumble, some of the rails fall apart. Okay. And we have one impact there, and you'll see that this part of the bridge is doing absolutely nothing. And that's okay, simply because we're not going to do one single impact to this. We may have a couple of different impacts. We may have one boulder hitting this and another object hitting this one. Okay, it's not really a big issue. And my plan is to actually have a boulder hit this part of the bridge, demolish it, and that'll start a chain reaction to have some of these towers begin to fall. And then these statues up here at the top are going to be actually connected with chains, and those will begin to shake and fall and then demolish this side. And that's where most of the impact is going to happen. So I'm pretty happy with how that looks right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop that simulation. Let's reset it. Let's move over to this side with our ball here. Let's start this simulation and just see what it looks like over on this side. There we go. That's busted apart. Pretty happy with that. I kind of like that little bit of explosion there. A little more violent, just to kind of add a little bit of interest to our dynamic scene. Okay. Now that flying out of there, we might have to take care of that. And we'll talk about how to deal with some of the unexpected results like that. Okay. Rails are all falling out. Our bridge is just partially destroyed here. Let's go ahead and stop that, reset that simulation. And let me actually hit Control Z a couple of times, simply because I deselected these static portions of the rails, and I need to actually create a selection set for that. So let's do bridge underscore rails underscore static. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've started creating the destruction. We've done a little bit of fine tuning on the main portion of the bridge itself. So let's go ahead and get into breaking apart the different towers, and then we'll start testing those in our next lesson.